Well, hello, hello. We're back again for another Other Ink Thursday. I'm doing some special post-Gen Con coverage here, and I have Clayton Notestine on my call here on the other side of my screen. And Clayton is a blogger at Discover. Wait, no, did,
Yeah, blogger at
I almost
Explorers
said Good Luck
Design.
Press because we were talking about Will Yopes just a second ago.
I
I tripped
wish.
myself up. Uh,
Yeah, if I could do a total swap of careers, by all means, let's do it. Let's get on that. But
tell 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 me your blog post because it's flew out of my head now. What's your blog?
okay, my blog is called Explorers Design. That's at
Explorers Design.
www.explorersdesign.com. And I was a 2025 ENNIEs judge.
And that is why this is special post-Gen Con coverage because now that your NDA is off and you can talk about the Ennies. And so I want to hear everything about it. But first, so like I had some questions and I sent some questions to you. So I want to kind of mostly follow those questions. So like obviously being an Ennies judge is not like the first it can't possibly be the first thing you do in the industry. So like you have to have started somewhere else. And obviously you have a blog and so like but even that is like I'm going to blog about design elements of games and layout and being a Ennies judge, you blogged about that. That can't be the beginning. So like where is the beginning for you in TTRPGs? Like
Yeah, okay, so if we're talking about my origin story, everyone's
a
got
little
one.
bit.
Yeah. I'll try to be brief with it. I've said this once before on like another podcast eons ago, but like when I got into RPGs, I didn't think that they were actually real. Like I thought that they had been a thing in the past and then they went extinct. Because I grew up in like rural Ohio, super pretty religious, very Catholic part of Ohio, very Irish Catholic, very Italian Catholic. And so what my experience with Dungeons and Dragons was is that I saw only the allusions made to it in like popular culture. So like I saw it in like the beginning of ET, and I saw it in like referenced in like cartoons like Dexter's Laboratory. There's like an episode where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but they can't say D&D and they can't like, be too overt about it because it's kind of a thing that a lot of people don't like. So I was just like, wow, I wish that game existed. Like that was like basically most of my life as a child was like that.
Is it because you mentioned the religious area that you were in? Is it sort of like the story that was told is like, oh yeah, they came on the scene and they tried to make this demon game, but we beat them and like they don't exist
No,
anymore. Like, is it?
I think it was literally just like it's the same as like why if you go into rural Ohio, you probably aren't going to hear anyone. Nobody knows like who wrote Rent the musical, right? Like that's just it's not that they're trying to like keep it, on the down low or they're trying to censor it. It just is one of those things where it's like this is what the community does. The community doesn't have any interest in it, and unless there's a way to beam it into people's homes, well, a lot of kids are not going to find out that it exists. So I knew this thing kind of like tangentially was real, or had been real at one point, or at least was an idea. So I spent most of my childhood like trying to reverse engineer it. Right, couldn't get the dice because that was an illusion. So I like made it out of like cardboard with tape and all that stuff. And then one day when I was at a yard sale, I saw a book sitting in like, the dime box with a bunch of other books. And it was of a what looked like a red demon holding a scantily clad woman. And there's a wizard on it and a knight, and it was the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide uh, from like
What?
the late like 1979. So I
Right.
immediately saw that and I was like, that's it. That
But
that has to be it. So I
but that only
paid the
confirms the idea that it's the thing from the past.
right. So then I went for another few years thinking it was like, okay, well, I have the artifact of this. And by the way, having the Dungeon Master's Guide from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons does not teach you anything about the game. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
It only increases the mystery. So, I went another like few years before finally seeing Dungeons and Dragons third edition in a bookstore. And then that's how I got into it. So, I've since then, I went into that. Then obviously it's like, well, what's the next most interesting thing? I went to Call of Cthulhu. I found out that Vampire the Masquerade existed. Quickly found out that maybe that wasn't for me. And then right as I was kind of getting off of those things, that's when the Forge and story games are really taking off. So I got really into all that stuff. All the Powered by the Apocalypse. I remember being on forums and seeing like the first like whisperings of uh Powered by the Apocalypse games, like when it was still just like ideas, being put out there, along with a bunch of other projects at the time, right? So Jason Morningstar, all those amazing
Yeah, yeah.
designers. And then time just passes, and we're now many, many, many design movements and cultures of play have come and gone since then.
Sure. Uh, so so you got into play and you got into playing the games, and I assume you eventually like you talked about stuff being has to be beamed into rural Ohio. The internet and playing on the internet is now possible. I mean, I don't know what the exactly the times that we're talking about here, but like
Yeah,
I assume you've got like a play group and or you did and you that's how you played all
yeah,
these games and you played either online or in person. Um, but then what is the spark that's like, oh, but I now I have to blog about it. Like,
yeah,
were you talking, what did it come out of that same sort of like you talked about terms that are very on the like analysis side of games, cultures of play and th that's not a term that's not a term you usually find in the books themselves. That's like an analysis term. There's almost like a secondary industry of
yeah.
analyzing TTRPGs that sometimes doesn't have anything to do with, I mean, whatever. It's two separate industries, I guess. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah. How did I end up in the industry architecture?
yeah,
The
yeah.
all this the infrastructure around games. Well, so I think it was a bit of a mixture of things. One, because I was trying to reverse engineer and I did become that person who like infected other nerds, right? Like there were other nerds in the rural Ohio like town and everything else that I was part of. And they had things like World of Warcraft was like just came out when I was in like late, I think I want to say like late high school or early high school or something like that. Maybe it was sooner, but point being like there was clearly like the ground was ready for Dungeons
Hmm.
and Dragons to show up. And then I became the forever GM teaching people and it spread out and all that good stuff. But I think part of how I ended up in this like weird sort of like critique and like theory role was like first off just like that early stage of like my first relationship to role playing games was trying to reinvent it. So I was immediately like, and then to then go from that, like trying to reverse engineer role playing games, and then end up in the Gygaxian, Byzantine landscape of his words. It was just like it was hard to come upon or conceive of role playing games as anything other than this like really like mechanical machine, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and then, of course, what did I fall in after that? I fell into the Forge. So again, then we get into the theory part of things. So basically, as soon as I like got a whiff of role playing games, I was immediately stumbling into the parts of it that were very like focused on like theory, design, and layout, and all those other things. And then while that was happening on the side, I've always been really interested in graphic design. I've been interested in like copywriting. I'm a copywriter now. I work as a design writer at like a branding studio. And so, these two worlds just have always been side by side. But
Yeah.
when I first started, they weren't mixed. Like a lot of like the really great like RPGs and then also their like their adventures and stuff, a lot of them still look like Word docs when I first like really started off. And and I remember like reading like Deep Carbon Observatory and a bunch of other like really like in the rise of the OSR where I was like, wow, this is really great, but it's really ugly and hard to read. Like there's something kind of difficult about it. There's nothing tonally about the way the layout is made that reinforces this awesome art and this awesome writing. And I think that's what got me into blogging about where first off I was like on rpg.net like making reviews and just sharing my thoughts and then it was like oh I kind of would love to like anybody else who gets this deep into it, who ends up listening to this kind of podcast or video, you're like, what? I want to make something now. And then you go into it. And before I knew it, I had made a website and then switched to another website. And you're now looking at the third iteration of Explorers Design, several years later.
Yeah. How many years do you think have you been blogging then about these topics?
I think Explorers Design, it first got the first thing I made for it was back in 2015, and a
All
lot of
right.
it's lost to the internet. Like
Sure.
it rotted off, as things do. We now know this, that a lot of things on the internet rot away. Uh, but the last like 2, 3 years, that's where it really like started to like stick around. And I think it was because I just started living a life that had some level of like predictability, right? Like I went from high school to college to looking for a job to grad school and so on and so forth. So I was moving constantly, and that hobby kept going fluctuating. And
Yeah.
now I live in Maine, and I don't plan on leaving Maine. And so this thing can actually grow. It can set roots.
Uh, Great. Yeah, I mean, that is, I got it. I was going to tell a story about my own decaying internet stuff, but that's not germane, so I'm going to skip that. As you set yourself up there, like it, one of my questions was like, so how did you want, so where, how did you then decide to, you wanted to be an Ennies judge? But like, it sounds like it's actually like all like a logical next step from all the stuff that you've been doing, like analyzing layout and paying attention to the way that that contributes to the experience of the game and uh, you know like you've got opinions about these things and it's your day job and so you're like your opinions are perhaps informed by training in these things as well as just looking at the page. So it almost that to me that answers the question, right? Of like why did you want to be an Ennies judge? It's like
Yeah.
it's the next logical step, right? In some
Yeah, I
respects.
feel exactly. Yeah, I feel like I was engineered in a lab to be the perfect sicko for an award show like operation. Like I was going to end up working on some sort of award show somehow, whether it was being like a helping coordinate or doing something with like spreadsheets. Like I before the Ennie Awards, I was in another award show called the Awards back in like
Hmm.
2022, 23. I can't remember. It was the first year that the awards dot games, that's I believe the URL. It was a smaller thing, and even when I was in that, I was in there partly because I just liked the person who was running it and thought that the work that was going into it was going to be really exciting. But even then, I was like, I want to help make a spreadsheet for this. So I like designed the spreadsheet for the awards the first year and did a couple other things like that, and then helped make their first like logo and things like that. So I've always wanted to be like part of like community building, part of like infrastructure of like games. I love the whole part of that process. I really, what I like to do, and this, I have some of your notes about like questions you're going to ask, but like the thing that the blog is all about doing is Explorers Design is all about like discovering the power of design and play. That's sort of the tagline. And basically all I'm trying to do is just take things that already exist in the world, ideas, knowledge, experience, and translate it into this other industry because role-playing games tend to be reinventing a lot of wheels
Hmm.
because it's just because and this is a good thing about it. It is a super indie hobbyist, low barrier to entry sort of like space. But that does mean that a lot of people are making books without any understanding of like even the terms of books, right? So
Hmm.
I was like, oh, it'd be actually kind of useful to give people some experience on these things. And now working on the Ennie Awards, it's kind of like, oh, we have an opportunity to take some really cool games that are doing something really interesting and just elevate them into the public sphere and then let people talk about it. Like
Hmm.
that's a big like component of it. So it's all about illuminating people to things that they maybe are not exposed to, give them access to things they don't have. That's my bread and butter. That's the thing I'm a sicko for.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to accelerate my question, accelerate a couple of my questions here to kind of, it's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
questions, but like I think maybe as an overview of the Ennies, it's often described, at least by me and other people that I talk to, as sort of like the Academy Awards of role-playing games. It's sort of there are many
Yeah.
award shows, and this one is sort of in. It feels like it's the premier one. It has enough clout and has been going on long enough that they have an award show that takes place in a nice room, and it's sort of the biggest awards within TTRPGs, or at least it feels that way, or I feel that way about it. Like I don't know if that's accurate, but because there's other part like the Origins Awards is also important and run by Gamma and stuff like that. So anyway, if you don't know what the ENNIEs are, I don't know why you watched on this video anyway, but that's sort of the ENNIEs, right?
Yeah.
They're sort of a big deal awards for the TTRPGs. And you mentioned the awards, and there's the Crit Awards and the Indie Groundbreaker Awards. There's lots
There's
of
a
award shows. We're sort
yeah.
of in award season currently, or this the ENNIEs are maybe kind of the end of the award show. Another sort of like parallel to the Academy Awards, all the precursor awards, right? Anyway, so I want to ask you to, having done it and having been part of it, and but also like having seen it before now, like I want to ask you what the best and worst things about the ENNIEs are, like because every award show is the worst one in
Oh,
its design and stuff like that. So like,
yeah.
why is the
What
ENNIEs the worst award show? Like we'll start there and then we'll go up from there. Like,
Yeah, well, okay, I will. Let's do it. First off, I will say that a lot of people do perceive it as the Oscars. Even the Oscars are partly just perception. There's plenty of
sure,
people who are
sure,
in the industry who are like, I can't believe that we're taking this thing seriously. So,
yeah,
but one of my design friends and colleagues describes it more like the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards of role-playing
hmm
games, which I think is maybe more accurate in that it's a lot more fun and a little less serious. There's certainly less regality to it,
mm.
compared to maybe the Oscars, Academy Awards. But
And no one
you know,
arrived in a limo that I know of to the
yeah,
ENNIES.
yeah. Well, no, no, yeah. Aside from, yeah, exactly. I was about to talk about the Nickelodeon Kids Choice Awards, but we don't need to do that right now. Okay, so you asked, why is it the worst awards?
Yeah.
Why I did you ask is why is it the worst designed awards?
Well, I mean, obviously part of I mean, you could, I
No,
don't
I'm
know.
just yeah, I'm just asking. The reason why I ask is because I think, and I'm gonna bring us back to the beginning. I think like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, uh, the ENnies are not designed. And that is what is probably the worst thing about it. And what I mean by that is it's like, so, I started my role playing world with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and the first thing you learn very quickly just by looking at the Dungeon Master's Guide, but once I got the other books, I've only confirmed it, is that this is really just like a bunch of systems that have been kludged together over time,
Hmm.
right? Like they're like, oh, we need a thing for this particular scenario that came up. Let's make something on the fly. That becomes part of the procedure and systems of the Gygaxian industrial complex of game, right? And I think, the ENnies it is the most regal. It is probably considered by many to be the most prestigious, and it has a lot to do with the fact that it just has inertia. It's been around for a long time, and you can tell because all parts of the ENnies clearly are like vestigial organs of other things that have happened in the past,
Hmm.
like some of the categories. You're like, why is that a category? It's like, well, at one point in time, this was probably super relevant, but it's not as relevant now. Why is it this? Why does the website look like this? It's like, well, it's a very old website. It's like, why is it run like this? Well, that's because it was always run this way. It's always evolved, but it never at any point was the ENnies like, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's like advanced D&D or even D&D like 2E. They're like, we're not gonna like go back to square one with this thing. Like,
Yeah.
this is what people like, this is what people know. It is by all accounts working. So we're not going to like break anything and
Yeah.
then remake it from scratch. We're just going to tweak things as we go. And I think probably like 90% of any dissatisfaction that we have with the Annie Awards is because we want it to be something that it just would require it to be remade to be that thing.
Right.
Uh, so yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's why it's the worst awards. And
Right. But okay, so let's
yeah,
flip it now. So why is it the best? Like again, I know you're biased because you've just done it and
yeah.
whatever, but like that doesn't matter. Like why is it the best one to be part of?
Yeah. Well, so first off, I should say me being a judge in the Annie Awards does not bias me in its favor. That's because I spent the last year being experiencing all things all at all times all at once.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience. It was an awful experience. It was a frustrating experience. It was a super rewarding experience. Like there
Yeah.
was every single emotion was present while judging in the Annie Awards. But I think the one of the things that makes it the best is because it has that inertia, it has this unbelievable platform that a bunch of people in the industry would beg for. You know, like I think there are so many institutions that wish they had the just the public the capital to do what the Ennies does. Like the Ennies can have regular mistakes and have slightly old systems. Its website can be kind of antiquated looking. It can have all these things, and it seemingly doesn't matter. It still manages to take up every like more mind share than any of the
Mm.
other awards. So and this sounds like a little bit I'm realizing that it sounds like a backhanded compliment. Like I'm saying like the best thing about the Annie Awards is the one thing that the Annie Awards really didn't plan for or like has a direct hand in. But I do think there is, you know, they've built a broad church for the
Mm.
industry and brick by brick that thing is undeniably has an effect on the community overall.
Sure. I feel that like as somebody who has had nominations and awards for
Yeah.
games that I've published, it's like it's not something you can ignore. I don't feel like every time we've been nominated, we go because like you don't want to just be like, whatever. It's just the Ennie Awards. You want to go and make a big deal about it. And if you win,
Yeah.
it is nice to go up in front of a bunch of people clapping for you and get a medal on your neck.
Yeah. And I will say this one thing that people who've not been to Gen Con or the Annie Awards, I had never been to Gen Con before the Annie Awards. I was like, okay, this is the thing that's going to push me to go to Indianapolis. And because it's just too flat. I like places that got more hills. And
I I don't think I've ever heard that particular complaint before, but I'll
yeah,
allow it.
you know, again, the one thing that Indianapolis cannot control. But anyway,
Sure.
so I think what people don't realize, the ones who've never been to the Emmy Awards, is that the ceremony is a lot of fun. It's very long, but there's something about going to a place where all of where you can drag your hand across the crowd, and you're like, and here's like 3 dozen people who make amazing stuff
Mhm.
right away, and they're all talking to each other. You got every major cool YouTubers there talking to each other. They're talking to the person who made Shadow Dark, the person who made Triangle Agency, the person who, you know, you just go across the board. You're like, all these amazing people are all in one room. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, that is, and then not only that, but then it's in the Union Station of Indianapolis, which is like this beautiful building. So it's hard not to be like, this is a fun, cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a subset of attendees who have decided that it is part of the fun is to dress up a bit for the Ennies. So
Yeah.
we've been calling it Fancy Ennies for I don't know. I think this is about the third or fourth or fifth year of doing it that way, and it does make it a little bit more like that Oscars red carpet thing. A couple of years ago, somebody as a joke brought a roll of red carpet and rolled it out in front of the doorway, and so everybody got to process
That's
into the
fun.
room on a red carpet. And that's just all for fun. It's for fun,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, why not?
And if you're going to be in a room that pretty with stained glass and the august marble and stuff like that, you might as well also
Yeah.
put on a tie and a or a tiara or whatever suits you. All right. So is there anything we kind of talked about it generally? I do want to get some time to have some more specific questions. So is there anything sort of like, I mean, you've blogged about some of the points of it, but like sort of general, like you mentioned just a moment ago, the like you've experienced every emotion. Is there any in the last year? Is there any sort of like things that you want to kind of talk about that process? Just mention, I guess, briefly, like sort of what it entailed, the things you had to do, or the maybe the things that surprised you about the process once you're inside it, because you can never really know what it's going to be like
Yeah.
if you haven't done it before. So what is just anything in general terms that were sort of like part of the process. If you can summarize what it took to do what you did.
Yeah. Okay, let's take it. Let's take a first stab at it. The thing that I didn't answer or say earlier is that why I wanted to be a judge. I wanted to be a judge because, like many people, I watch the Ennies every year or try to watch them every year, and I'm always like, why these nominations?
Hmm.
I ask, why these nominations? How does this process work? Why do I not know anything about how the Ennies work beyond what is visually apparent in like tweets and like the website itself? So I part of me just wanted to be at Ennies just because I was like, there are only one way to find out how the Ennies work. Apparently, it's to actually be working inside the Ennies. Because
Yeah.
I asked some people who won. I was like, "How does it work?" And they're like, "I don't know, man. I just go to the thing when
Yeah.
I got nominated." So I
You
that's
submit your
what I wanted
books
to do.
and then you either get an award or you don't. And
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
it. That's as a publisher, that's all you know.
yeah. So I got in, and the big you asked like, what's the most surprising thing? I guess I was surprised by how much just sort of free form the actual judging process is.
Hmm.
So the head coordinator Stacy Muth, she basically tells the judges pretty early on. It's like, listen, we don't interject. We're not going to get you are going to run these meetings, and only the judges are going to run the meetings. It's going to be a judges only affair. The judges are going to will be on the call for questions or any confirmations. We'll double check with like technical stuff, logistics. But otherwise, like the judges are going to decide how often they meet with some pretty strong recommendations from the coordinators, and you are going to figure out how you're going to decide like the sort of regular the routine. What is there going to be criteria? Is there going to be all these things? So we got like a lot of leeway. There was even like you have to respect the categories by the way they're written on the website, because that is what the some people who are submitting their games under the assumption of. But when it comes to like weird edge cases, of which there are many, you will have to interpret where it should go as far as categories, because something that maybe people don't remember or don't realize is that the ENnie awards, and frankly most role-playing game awards, do not have you submit to specific categories. They have you submit just in general,
Right.
and then the judges are the ones who sort into the categories, which is bonkers and bizarre. Like it's bonkers and bizarre in the sense that like I've been in other award shows, and I've participated as a submitter and stuff in like design and advertising awards, other industry awards that aren't this. And that's a pretty unique idiosyncratic thing of like role playing games. So that was definitely the most surprising thing, of just being like, oh, okay, well then let's I'm here's what I want to talk about, and then sharing like, oh, this is what I think this category means, and immediately just like going off to the races. Like
Yeah.
I got in that first meeting and it was like, oh wow, I'm going to be one of the most annoying people i- in this like group on a
What,
regular basis.
wait, why do you say that about yourself? Just because you have like you were
I
coming in with like I have a plan to like make it all organized and I think we
no,
should use a 5 checkpoint system and then like or you just came in with like these are the best ones, right? Everybody, right, right? And
I think I came in hot with a lot of enthusiasm. Like I've wanted to talk about so many things all the time. I always I towards the end of the process, I started to be like, hey, I want other people to talk, because I'll just keep talking if I don't like I have to seed the room. But I no, I think I was the most annoying because of that, and then also like I ask so many questions. I am
hmm,
so curious about things. I must have asked Stacy like 5 times what community content means in the category. Like just double confirming, what does this mean? What qualifies for this? And I ask that questions like that all the time. Every time I was like, what's this mean with this category? It's like what have you, or I was
hmm.
asking the submissions coordinator. mark if they had gotten this thing, or hey, I would just reach out to people and talk constantly. I was over communicating, and and I really do mean sometimes maybe over communicating.
Well, I do. I mean, to the extent that you're talking about the blog or talking about the process came through in your blog, and every public forum that every Discord that I saw you on, and every place where I saw you, you did talk about it. You shared more about the process than I have ever seen
Yeah,
anyone else share ever
I
before
I
during
I,
the
prob
year.
I probably skirted the line quite a bit on the NDA. Let's be honest. I read it, and I believe I followed it to the letter. But I also was like, I'm not going to. And this is also the annoying thing. How I was annoying. I asked Stacy multiple times. I was like, "Is it okay if I send this message to like Discords?" Like I was like, I don't want people to miss the deadline. So I was like, I am going to message certain like, and I didn't do this as well as I would have liked to. I should have gotten a better schedule. Like I should have done it in like Excel spreadsheet. But I was like, I'm going to try and reach out to a bunch, all the Discords I'm on once a month, and just remind them. And then if they have any questions, they can ask me, and hopefully I can answer them. If not, I'm just going to funnel them to someone else in the coordinators team. Which again, part of the annoying thing is like, I just consistently like, oh yeah, okay, here's Mark's email. Go ahead and talk to the submissions coordinator. Uh, so yeah, I think I probably triggered a bit more email discourse back and forth than they maybe, or correspondence than maybe they had gotten in the past. Who knows?
Yeah, I can't
But
imagine that that they never get emailed about anything. It's
they definitely did. I just think I increased their numbers like
mm.
quite a bit.
All right. Is there anything? I mean, there's so many. We've covered so much already, and I feel the passing of time. But I want to ask you about the. You mentioned the judges and coming together, and like how often you were able to meet with the rest of the judges. Like, I imagine, this is what I wrote to you. I imagine that it's like, oh, clearly, like pick any one category or whatever. Like best production values seems like a very sort of one that is less confusing, right, than like what is community content.
Yeah.
You're like, this game looks amazing. This boxed set has a lot of stuff in it. That's sort of one that you could think of as, I would think of as like sort of explicable it immediately, like to everyone who's a judge, like what is the best production values on the table here. So I imagine that there's five nominees, right, for each category, except for the
Yeah.
one that has like 10, right? And then so it's
Yeah. Best
like
game.
so it's like there's clearly one that is everyone would agree this is the best one, and then the other four get argued about, or the other three get argued about, or is it not as easy as that? Is there, when you came together with the judges, was there complete, was everybody had five different choices for every category, or was there sort of you only had to discuss three things because everybody agreed that this was one of the best five? Like, was your work I don't know if I've asked that question
Yeah.
clearly. Like, um, but
How did we decide on the nominees, the final five
well,
nominees,
sure.
right?
I mean, knowing that there's only five, it seems like
Yeah.
everybody could agree on a couple of them, but then you argue about the other three. But maybe that's not right. Maybe everybody has completely different opinions, and you had to argue about all
Yeah.
five.
It would depend on the category. So I mean, there are some where they kind of stood out, and you would be surprised which things that ended up on the nominees list were like immediate, like universal acclaim. Like, oh yeah, that's great. We all love that. Everyone loves that. No one has any negative notes about this thing at all. And the thing is like when I was in those meetings, I mean, the first thing you notice right away is like, oh wow, I have drastically different tastes to some folks on this panel, right? Like, I'm gonna shout out one just because I'm only gonna be nice. Tom, who is one of the other judges, Tom's got awesome tastes. I like he has like a real eye for certain stuff that I recognize. Like he's like one of those perfect examples of a great critic where you know why they've come to their conclusions on certain things, and you don't have to agree with them to understand and appreciate it. he has a really good eye for like story games and like journaling games and games that are more on the lyrical side of things. So he would bring things and like they would be games where I was like, I don't really care for that game at all. But because of the way you've described it and you've conveyed, and this is the thing about how we came to these like the final list is it was just a lot of discussion. So people would often pull out their soapbox and sing praises about things, and then it'd be like, all right, does anyone disagree with this? Does anyone have a counter argument to this thing?
Yeah.
So we had a lot of that. But he would do it for like certain games, and I would just be like, yeah, all right. I think in this category, Tom should get this one. And I don't it's not for me, but he gets this one, I'll get one in this other category. Like and so
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a and it's not like we're going in sitting there like trading Pokemon cards or something. Like we're not trading and being like, I get this one in this category, so you can get one in that category. It's much more just like free form, empathetic, like trying to come to some agreement of being like, okay, I trust you. I think you're probably right. It's not for me, but not this is not a Clay Notestine Awards. This is the ENnie Awards. So we have to hit like a we want to be even handed with all these
Yeah.
different things.
I mean, the social navigation amongst the judges of that
Yeah,
process is it's that's fascinating to hear and unsurprising, I suppose, now that you've said it.
yeah,
But like, I like the way you describe that, where it's like, you know, because you believe in it, this can be one of the five, and there's sort of
yeah,
like because it's not you're not actually casting the votes, you're not actually ranking the top five of the year. You're
yeah,
sort of you're offering a slate of what you as a panel think is the five best. I guess there's maybe less stakes there where it's like, well, the public will determine which of these five is quote unquote the best, but like we
yeah,
think this deserves the mention among the five as a panel. And, if this was your number 10, but Tom's number five, and so it gets on the list, or Tom's
yeah,
number one and you're number 10, and so you compromise and he gets to mention the thing on one
yeah,
category, then you get maybe something back and forth on another category that you get to mention something that other people weren't as excited about. I, that's such a I mean it's like you talked about it. It's like nobody knows how the sausage gets made until you fight
yeah.
till somebody talks about it.
And it's it's there's something kind of I say this in not a negative way, but there's a little bit of like a tactical political sort of way of it of like how much
Sure.
political capital do I have? Like several instances where I'd be like, all right, I've made my peace. Nobody's bit on this
Uh-huh.
thing at all. I'm not going to pressure them because I don't want to expend my, social capital on this thing and have them tune me out for the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So there were certainly a lot of games, and here's the thing: all the judges' spotlights, every single judge spotlight was put forward by that judge for probably one, maybe even two categories. And maybe they got some biting, but ultimately at the end of the day, those were things that did not end up in any of the nominees. And that was when the judge was like, all right, fine. I'm going to use the nuke button. I'm
Right,
going to
right,
the
right.
nuclear option. It's going to be my spotlight.
It's
So,
it at least
I
gets a spotlight.
yeah, I wanted Heroes of Cerulea for a while to be best cover or best design. I Yeah, and I still believe in that. The cover, for those of you who don't know, it's less expected of an option for a cover, but the idea being that it's designed, it's gray. It looks like a
Hmm.
cassette game, like one that you would put in a thing. It even has like the debossing, that's the indents on the covers that match the ridges on an actual cassette. So it was just like conceptually it was like very of itself. It was like we are
Yeah.
making a low poly, low res rule system that is 100% emulating video games, and even the book itself looks like a big old cartridge game.
Right. I took a
Uh,
look at it at the IGDN booth, um, probably after the awards show, but like I noticed it there because of I'd
yeah,
seen it get the
it
judge's
sticks
spotlight
out.
from you.
Yeah. And and that's the thing too of like sometimes I think one of the things I also wanted to do when I went into ENNIEs is I wanted to be part of whatever team could maybe move the needle a little bit in the ENnie Awards. I think in the previous years, not last year. Last year was pretty decent, but like we've had years where it's like, okay, this is basically Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, and maybe a couple other like big box game companies duking it out for the public vote. But otherwise, it's a pretty there's not a lot of indie representation here, and I think what I wanted, and one of the things I really liked about this year was, and one of the reasons is why I was singing praises about Tom, but a lot of the judges recognized it was like, you know what, well, like there are whatever metrics we all have internally. One metric that we all, most of us share is we appreciate games that take swings, that are trying to do
Hmm.
something new, trying to go for it, go after it. I think our choices really reflect that. You know, I think there's some games in there where you're like, okay, that one's maybe messy. It might be weird. It may even feel like it's not supposed to be in the category, but it is doing something, and that something is interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think some people would be surprised by what some of those games are. Like the Monty Python RPG, it turns out it's not an IP cash grab. It's actually really interesting.
Or not just an IP cash grab,
It's
because
not
it
just
abs
yeah,
because I
I mean,
can't imagine that it isn't
well,
also that on some
well,
level.
it's not that it's an IP cash grab. It's that the cash is just going to show up because they have the IP. The people who made it
Sure,
are
that
like
one,
super
that
huge
one.
fans of it and all that stuff. But
Well, yeah, I mean,
that game's got really wild rules, like rules that are way more interesting than any game with that's made after an IP should have.
sure.
It's way more innovative than I thought it would be.
As seems fitting for a game based on
Yeah,
absurdist comedy from the 70s.
yeah, exactly. No, it's 100% in that vein. So yeah, no, it for sure is.
Yeah, I've taken a look at the book, but I haven't spent much time with that one. So you know, I don't know. We'll see. I'll it's now it's Annie
Give
award
it a
winning.
read.
It's Annie award winning.
Yeah,
Okay. I don't know. We haven't we got some more time. We haven't talked about anything.
yeah.
You want to uh let me see if I got another question here that's pretty good. So like I think I mean this is sort of like just comes to mind because of the way that we talked about it just now. When you as a publisher and myself, and a writer of a nominated product, right? Writing credits on a nominated product. It is very easy to think of, and many people talk about it this way, that I have won an ENNIE award or I'm an ENNIE award-winning designer, and the awards do have the names of the people on them, like when they're read in public and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it is the product that is nominated, and do you does that matter to you? Like, do you think about that part of it when people talk about it, or when you thinking about it,
Yeah.
you're because obviously so many products are such a personal create, so many RPG products are such a personal creation of the creator to like, but like it's different than like, with the Academy Awards, the actors get the nominations or the producers get the awards or whatever. But like, with the ENNIEs, it's worded in such a way that like this is the product that has won this award. This is the ENNIE nominated product or the ENNIE award winning product. Um, I don't know. Does that distinction matter, or do you think about it? Um,
I I think it does. I think this is a good question, and it gets back to the question of like the good bad of the Ennies. Uh, I think, for the sake of simplicity, like more often than not, like even when you look at other award shows for any other industry, whether it's movies or it's design or something, you are awarding the object, but it's known and understood that these awards are going to be owned by people, not some sort of like non-person entity, right? Like
right.
the Triangle Agency's awards are going to the team that made that game. I think the Ennies maybe in the future should and could be more uh, take more something in the realm of the Indie Groundbreaker Awards where you list those credits out more. I think one of the things I'm always interested by is like, we'll have something like best setting as a category, and the game will go up on the screen and the presentation or ceremony or what have you. and it will have the name of the game and the name of the publisher. And then if it says something like best writing, it might have the authors. But it's like, okay, well, yeah, but like writing's not just authors, it's also the editors. And best setting is not just the publisher and the writer, it's also the artist and maybe the cartographer and maybe it's also the developmental editors. And it takes a village to make a
Hmm.
lot of things. I think a lot about. I wish I could remember who said this quote, but like with movies and stuff, like even the worst movie was like a miracle. Like it takes a lot of work from a lot of people to make a bad movie.
Yeah.
And
It's, oh
people
gosh,
lost sleep making
Manos,
it.
The Hands of Fate comes to mind immediately. Like that's a terrible movie, but it still took a lot of work to even make even
Yeah.
that.
And so, role playing games is the same way. Like even when and this is
Mm.
one of the things that like is really important when being a judge is you're reading 1,000 books and you're like, even the ones where you're like, wow, that one really did not pop off. That one did the opposite of good. But it's like, well, but it is an individual work that showcases something of the individual. Oftentimes the award-winning games are the ones where you're like, that is such a personal work.
Mm.
That has to win something. But anyway, all of this to say that yeah, I think it's real. My thing is I don't make a distinction. I don't make any sort of like prescriptive distinction of it. Like I don't go. I would certainly not be of the mind of like, oh, this is only for the game. It's not for the person. I would never do that. But to maybe take it even further, I wouldn't even be like it's only for this one person who is hyper relevant to this category. No, I would be like, no, everyone gets it, right?
Yeah.
If this award wins best production, it's going to everyone on the team. It's not going to just the person who was on the phone with the factory or
Right.
sending emails back and forth. I think it should go to probably everybody who's a part of that process because again, it takes a village to make it the thing, and everyone probably lost sleep or got stressed out about it at some point. So everyone's sweat is and equities in this thing.
Yeah.
So everyone should feel that they could take credit for it. And
Yeah.
you
They
didn't
do.
ask this, but I
No,
will
go ahead.
say anytime anyone's like, I'm an award-winning any designer or writer or whatever, I'll be like, great. Like
Yeah.
it does. I'll be honest. More often than not, I'm like, fine. I don't really doesn't change my feeling of it at all in any way, shape, or form. Because a lot of years, I disagreed with the Ennies selections. But I don't. I would never disparage somebody for being proud that they won an award because they
Yeah.
should be proud they won an award. It's just a way of saying I've made an RPG, and that alone is a lot of work.
Sure, sure. I think they do. It is interesting, yeah, technical distinction or whatever. Like they do have the. I mean, after the award show, they must have like a barrel of the medals up there behind the screen, and you can go and get one for your whole team. Like
Yeah,
they only
it
present
just
one as the part of the ceremony, but then if you want three because there's three more credits in this
yep,
book, they hand them out. I mean,
yeah.
I think there's a limit, and then you have to pay for them beyond the number. But like,
It's a whole thing. It's
whatever.
logistics, like they have a blacksmith sitting there right next to the stage, just
Right,
like
right.
hammering them out for you
The whole time, the whole time.
the whole time. And
Uh,
and and she gets progressively sweatier and sweatier as the ceremony goes on because it's like 3 hours.
it is a lot of awards. Uh, uh, yeah. But there's an intermission. It's nice.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if there's anything in particular that so one more question about the show, and then we'll kind of talk about like forward
Yeah.
momentum for you personally. But like, so one more thing. So you've got your Annie Spotlight. You've been part of all the awards. Is there anything else that didn't even make that level? What's the third rank down? Like didn't get a nomination, but you gave it your
Uh,
spotlight, but then there's still some other stuff that's like it's still on your shelf or you go back to it, but it was just that of the 1,000 books that you read, it's like the third tier down of stuff that gets mentioned. So here's your chance to mention yet something
all
more
right.
that influenced you.
So it's funny you just to go and peek behind the curtain for other people. You wrote this question down for me in advance, and I have a spreadsheet with all of the physical submissions in
Hmm.
like really small type. So to answer the question broadly without saying any names yet, there are not enough seats. there are not
Mm,
enough spots to fill in the Ennies. The thing I don't like about all any like not even any awards, it's almost all RPG awards is that they are so exclusively zero sum. Everyone gets a silver, a gold, maybe a copper, and that's it. And there are so many award shows out there where it's like, no, a category will have multiple silvers, multiple coppers because those award shows recognize that it's like what's important is getting as many of these things that are interesting onto a
mm,
list as possible. So there on if I had done this all over again, I would, and this is going to probably frustrate some people, there would be differences every single time on the nominations list. I would have probably, depending on the day, changed some of the things I fought for. So things I really liked, and it goes on and on. I really liked a small game called Peacemaker, which is like a sort of like a gunslinger game. It was a little tiny little thing. I obviously liked Heroes of Cerulea. There was Never Going Home. You sent like three books. I love World War One. I almost had to go and like say like I'm not into. I can't be unbiased in this. Like I automatically already like this artist's work. I love this setting. I've owned these books for a while now, so I had to. But one of those examples where people didn't quite bite on it.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I appreciate
but
that.
and then I really liked Fangishala. And I'm saying it wrong, but it's a family friendly kids game that comes out of what I want to say is Sweden. It's a little tiny book. It's got a really fun art style. There was a book called Cryptid Creeks that I liked. I sent that to the library near me because I want people to play that there. Uh, Gardens of Yin had sent their version, their newest latest edition, and
Hmm,
I love
hmm.
Gardens of Yin. And the newest edition is especially the cover is very luxurious. I love Duckborg. Duckborg was I fought hard for Duckborg
Yeah,
until I stopped fighting hard for Duckborg because I was like, okay, people might actually ask me to stop, but I thought that one was really good. And yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's a bunch of stuff by like City of Mist. They had another game come out called Otherscape that was really good. Kids on Bikes 2E came out
it
recently.
did. It did.
Uh, let's
I
see.
just saw that in my local game shop just the other day.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. I Primal Quest brought some
Mm,
stuff. They Feed on Fear 2E is a game whose art made me say Jesus, like under my breath when I saw it. And that made me really argue that maybe it should be an art nomination because it's some of the most disturbing, terrifying art in the entire pool this year. Ballads of Oriad, uh, awesome, super colored, full book, cool setting, very OSR in the best way. Yeah, and I'm on page two now, like page
right.
three of this. So the list goes on and on and on. There was a lot of stuff. There's the Electric State role playing game, which has
That's
amazing
true.
art. Uh, Eco Mofos was talked about at length for a lot of categories. Uh, yeah, a bunch of stuff.
Bunch of stuff. Well,
Yeah,
I,
I might make a blog post called the short list where it's like
yeah.
everything that I ever liked with like one sentence
I
for
mean,
why
that's
it is.
cool.
Yeah, but
You,
I'll tell you what though, that one I'm having a hard time writing because the more I write, the more I'm like I want more sentences for this thing, and then I realize that that would mean I'm writing like like a 20-minute long read blog post, which is too long for a blog post.
yeah. I mean, you could do. I mean, I don't know. You're sound like you a spreadsheet kind of person. You could do, your top 50, but then like the 25, the lower 25 of your top 50 get the one sentence, and then your top 25 you do as like five subsequent posts with five
Yeah,
paragraph with a paragraph each, right? Or then you save your
I might
top.
write this down. Actually,
Yeah.
this is not a bad way of going
I mean,
about
I
it.
don't know how strapped you are for content, but I think this
I
you're in a unique position of having read like all a thousand games that came out in the last year, and so like take up as
yeah.
much space to talk about them as you want, I'd say.
Yeah, that's gonna be the first few months now for Explorers Design is just talking about the Ennies to the point where I'm probably gonna have to make a post saying, hey, sorry, I'm about to talk a lot about the ENNIEs. This is not an ENNIEs blog, but right now, for the next couple months, it is.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that's one that you can I've got a one of the bloggers that I follow, he does a science blog, and so anytime that he writes a new article on a topic, he'll go back and he has like sort of key posts where it's like
yeah,
that post always gets updated with like links to the newest relevant blog posts. So it's like you can kind of always go back to that sort of the introduction to like get
yeah,
access to all of the posts. It'll link you out to all of them. So I don't know, something like that is possible. Like here it
yeah,
is. This is the Indies. This is the start of the Indies. If you don't want to read it, that's fine. But if you do,
yeah,
here, come back and see what new stuff I've covered. Um, well, having mentioned Explorers Design again, we're kind of back around to like the where
yeah.
we started with the blog post, and we're so I want to ask you like you talked about the writing a series of posts about the Innies, your experience in some more detail than we've been able to go to in this conversation, I'm sure. And I look forward to those because you got a pretty good blog there, Clayton.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you. I might submit to the ENNIEs. No, I'm
you
kidding.
should, you should. But so like,
It just
I mean,
it get cruelly just dragged by by the
well.
judges there.
But that's sort of my question is like,
Yeah.
at what point does the serpent start eating the tail here in this situation? Like, now that you've seen so many more RPGs, like, not necessarily more RPGs, but like you've been forced by the process to examine them and think about them in a way that you hadn't previously. Um, and does that result in like and now I must create one and then, or does it like, okay, I'm going to take a year off, but like in 2 years, I hope to be back to do this again. Like, what is the future of you in the Ennies, do you think, or you in games in general?
Uh, I don't know. I feel like after this year's talking about the ENNIEs, I might not be invited back because I'm being very candid. But that, we'll find out if that's the case. But right now, I'm actually more energized by the ENNIEs to do other things that aren't any related. I went into the ENNIEs wanting to learn more about the process and maybe shine some light on it. I'm hoping to put a capstone on that by November, having written a bunch about it already, but also writing my post-mortem, which is probably
Hmm.
like it's going to be like 3 parts long. First part's already 15-minute long read. Like it's going to be a whole thing. But then after that, I mean, the thing I was inspired by seeing all these games and reading all of them and everything else is like one, I really want to go, I want to get back into writing for Explorers Design, but this time I won't have to navigate the minefield of what can I talk about. Because one of the things
Mm.
I learned really quickly is like, man, I want to do a post where I just talk about like this amazing designs by this one person. Like just do like a full on deep dive. Don't even interview them. Just like I'm looking at their work and I want to tell you why everyone should be playing everything made by Adam Bass. Like that's the thing I want to do, right? Or
Well, you
like
mentioned you mentioned Primal Quest, and so like, yeah, Diogo starts at the beginning and like review all of Diogo's
Yeah,
games.
exactly. And the thing is like, so there was like things I wanted to write about. Like I've done in the past, like real like layout examinations where I like lay out a book and I explain like this is how this book works on
Hmm.
a like visual design level. And I had to shelve that because I tried to write like 3 versions of that, and then that person submitted something to the Annie Awards. And I was like, okay, well, I can't write about it now because I can't talk about how this person is like, brilliant. and then seemingly be reviewing their stuff for the Ennie Awards,
Hmm.
and because I don't want to bring on some sort of controversy, with it. So there's a lot of stuff that now that I can write about, I'm going to write about, which I'm really excited by. And then the other thing is that having seen so many games, uh, I want to make something. Like I don't want to just write about other people's work, which has always been my MO, which is one of the reasons why I say I was built in a lab for this, because by not making games, I'm weirdly qualified according to the Ennies to be a judge, because that's like it's not a rule of the Ennie Awards that you can't be a designer, but some of the rules about like not having a relationship with any publishers, any sort of like conflicts of interest, like none whatsoever, basically makes it so that if you are a working designer, you probably are not allowed
Yeah.
technically to be a judge in the Ennies.
Which
But
does seem like one of the weird rules.
it is sure is, and it will be in the postmortem part two. Anyway, so but yeah, talking about all that stuff, and then yeah, I want to make stuff for other people's games. Because there were a couple adventures where I read them this year, and I was like, I had several thoughts. The first one is, wow, that is really great. I finally understand this game now. Like it actually took someone else making something for the game for me to recognize that like a game was really, really good.
Hmm.
Uh, Case in point, Sweet Revenge by uh, Destiny Howell, who's an awesome writer. She wrote this adventure for Perils and Princesses, and I liked Perils and Princesses before this adventure came out. But reading the adventure like confirmed it doubly. I was like, oh, okay. Now that I know what an adventure looks like for this system rules. So, there's a bit of that for me where I want to like write adventures because I'm like, would be a great way to like boost some of my favorite like designers. Like I love their work, I love their game. Why not make something for their game? And I it was inspired by judging all these entries for that reason from that. And then the other one, and this one's going to sound a little catty, but I think of John Waters, who's a director who makes
Hmm.
like real schlocky, smutty stuff. And he's got some of the best advice for anyone who's creative, which is that, everyone says like watch a lot of movies if you want to make movies. And a lot of people will say watch lots of good movies. And John Waters says watch a lot of terrible movies because the terrible movies will encourage you to go out there and make a terrible movie as well, which is always the thing that's the hardest. It's like the first few things you make are going to be crap, and you have to let yourself make crap for a while before you make something good. And after reading over 1,000 entries, some people have gotten over that hump and they've made some crap and they sent it to the ENNIEs, and it was probably the most inspiring work in many
Hmm.
ways for me as another creative person, because I was like, wow, they actually put some skin in the game. They made this thing. They put a lot of heart and work into it. I should be doing that too. So that's the big thing for me after the ENNIE Awards is like I gotta make more stuff. I need to be stop being so precious about it. Look at all these other people who are just fighting through it and they're making awesome things, personal things.
Yeah. Uh, well, thank you, Clayton, for your time today to talk
Yeah.
about all this stuff. I think we're right at about our hour of recording, and I really appreciate your the inside baseball, right? I mean, this is my interviews are often with creators, talking about the games from their perspective, but I also want to talk to people that, own game stores and manage, like print shops and stuff like that. And you're
Yeah.
part of that where it's like there's so much more to the industry than just, hey, I drew these cool images. I mean, that is obviously vital, but there's a whole world of what it takes to make the industry what it is, and your almost it's almost like journal. I mean, blogging is journalism, right? And to some extent, right? So there's like the
So, I
the the
mean, yeah.
critics, the critics covering the movies are the tastemakers, and they are the ones who are explaining all of the stuff, and they're interviewing the people and giving their opinions, and so what talking to you today made me think of the movie film reviewers, right, where like the critics are there to tell you I mean, depending on how they approach it, they'll telling you
Yeah.
these are the best movies of the year, but usually it's they have that opinion because they saw all the movies this year, like so it's their opinion doesn't come from, sometimes it comes from their inflated sense of ego, but like usually it comes from like I watched all the movies and these are the ones that I thought were the
Yeah.
best, like I've seen a lot of acting or I've seen a lot of special effects and like these are the ones you should take note of. So like that part of the industry, our TTRPG industry is also exists, and so you're doing that work in that space. So thanks for all of that, and for being so open about it.
Yeah, I love doing it. It's so much fun. And I mean, I'm a huge optimist. I think even when a person does a review and I think the review is bad, I'm like, huh, but they got me talking about it. So
Mm,
it's there's something good there. So, if you don't like some of the nominations this year for the Ennies, that's the system is working as intended. As long as you're looking at them and you are thinking about them and considering them and weighing them and all, and then telling your friends about how they're wrong or how they're right or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like it's the It's the consuming of them and the admiration of things that matters, the conversation.
Yeah. Well, if people want to be part of the conversation that you're putting out there, where can they find you on the internet and
Yes.
Explorers Design and or any other places you want to be found?
Well, the good news is you can just type in Explorers Design into Google and it will show basically only me. So thankfully, SEO is in my favor here, but I'm on available on Blue Sky. You can find me there at Explorers Design. And then of course there's my website, www.explorersdesign.com. I don't know how DNS works. The www is really important for my website. And if you know how to fix that, let me know. And then, of course, I'm on itch and other things like that. So if you need tools or you want to learn how to do layout, you're curious about visual design or how that intersects with mechanical design, I'm your guy. I'm one of a few people who talks about that sort of sicko stuff. So come comment and join and have fun with me as we explore design together.
Excellent. What a great pitch. Again, thank you for your time today. And we'll be seeing you around the internets and
Yeah, I'll
look
see you in
forward to
Discord.
yeah, we'll on Discord for sure and we'll see you and your I look forward to your post mortem series of posts. All 45 minutes of reading that I get to do.
Yeah,
I
yeah, you're gonna have to sit down for it.
uh yeah, that's I almost never stand up to read. That's odd, but
Yeah.
that's me. Um, one last time, Clayton, thank you. And I want to thank everyone who watched this video for watching it. In the comments, just yes or no, put whether or not the innies got it right this year. Just
Oh
real
God.
simple. We'll take a poll in the comments.
Yeah.
Did the innies get it right? Uh, that's it. No further details.
No, no, no. Do detail. Let there be conversation. It can't just be yes or no. I mean, I guess it could be. Who cares? It's
I,
fine.
I don't know how to set up a poll in the comments, so or I would, but
Yeah.
yeah. Tell us the best and worst for the innies
There
in
we
the
go.
comments, the video. Uh, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.